Hi, and welcome to Talking Type with your host, Jonah Dempsey. Today I am going to be talking about a table from Eric Strauss's book. If you're not familiar with Eric Strauss, he is the host of Talking with Famous People, and he does Type Police here on YouTube. And he's a fantastic thinker and just a really great typologist, really sharp. He's an ENTP and seems to have really good TI and pretty good SI too, and just really sharp. He's also a debate coach, so that probably contributes to his skill in making arguments and just being really precise in his language and being really cogent and just all around a really great thinker. So Eric has this great book called Exciting Tables and Charts About Human Personality, and I have a link in the description. And I was talking to I was on a Facebook group for Objective Personality, the unofficial Objective Personality Facebook group, and the conversation came up about how each type responds to criticism. The question was, do you respond to criticism of your saviors or your demons? And in Objective Personality, your savior functions are basically your dominant and auxiliary function, and your demons are your tertiary and inferior. So would an ESFP get really hurt if you criticize their SE? You know, if you said, wow, you don't seem like you're doing very much. You know, because SE is all about doing and taking action. You don't really have a lot of follow-through. Would that criticize them? Would they be hurt more by that? Or what if you criticized their inferior NI? Would they be more hurt if you said, you know, that conclusion that you drew, that assumption that you made seems wrong? And would they be hurt? And so it was raised in the thread, and then I remembered that Eric Strauss, in his great book, Exciting Tables and Charts About Human Personality, actually has a table of how types respond to criticism of each of their functions. And not just the front stack 4 functions, but also the shadow functions. You know, how would a type respond to criticism of any of the 8 functions? So then I was on this Facebook group, and I thought I would write an example for the ENFJ, because I have a friend on there, a friend and collaborator, Thomas Alott, who is a great contributor to the Objective Personality group and a great contributor overall just to typological study. He came up with the idea of push and pull animals, which are the variants of animals in Objective Personality. And I hope to do a video on the animals soon, maybe next. Although I don't know if I'll get into push and pull variants. But in short, the animals are the tandem use of functions, like when you use NI with TE together. That would be the animal blast. Because the NI is kind of pulling from this inner wealth of knowledge, and the TE is blasting it out. And the push and pull variants that Thomas came up with are whether you have NI first, pushing its observations onto the TE decider function, where the TE is getting overtaxed because it can't keep up with all the NI. Or you have TE first, like an ENTJ, for instance, who's lead blast. You know, then it's pull because the TE is pulling from the intuition, and it's pulling more than the intuition can handle. The intuition's more taxed. In any case, I'll go into the animals a different time, but this is just to give a little context that, you know, Thomas Alott is just a great contributor to the Objective Personality group, and he is an ENFJ. And so I thought that I would address him in particular with my example, although this should be true for all ENFJs. So I'm actually going to read my comment from the Facebook thread. And I think I do reference one thing in particular. At the end, I reference Thomas made a YouTube comment widget. He's a computer programmer, you know, and was able to build a simple web app that allows you to, it transcribes, it pulls the transcript of the YouTube video, and then you're able to write comments, and it timestamps your comments. And so I do reference that, but besides that in particular, this is generally true for all ENFJs. And I'm kind of testing it out because I'm asking, I start by saying, Thomas, does this ring true for you? And I'm going to show, yeah, here's the table. Here's the table from Eric Strauss's book. How do you respond to critique based on the function slot being critiqued? And I'm going to go through each of these eight function slots and what those are. Thomas, does this ring true for you? FE is implicitly valued, so you disregard any critique of your FE. Eric describes FE as making approximations of the FI of others based on their actions and displays. So this might be someone critiquing your opinion of someone else's emotional state. You're wrong, I'm not sad, when they really seem to feel sad. You would theoretically disregard this and trust your observation of their emotional state. There's much more to FE than just this, but that example should suffice. Your NI is your instrumental function, which you would begrudgingly accept when it's criticized. Strauss describes NI as understanding time as a web of events sequentially related and impacted by durational considerations. So this would be a begrudging acceptance when someone points out to you that there may be an alternative sequence of events that led to the current circumstance. That your NI may be making leaps in assuming that one previous event directly led to a current situation. Your SE is your scorecard for self, and where you actually learn when it is critiqued. For Strauss, SE is about taking action, so you would score yourself on how well you take action, and others who critique your ability to take action would be taken seriously. How can I change to learn to get more done, to be more action-oriented? Strauss describes SE as following through on a course of action that has already been decided, end quote. So this would be about follow-through. You would be open to critique of how to improve your follow-through, and excited about opportunities to have better follow-through. Your TI is seeking, and would be where you are most open to help from others. Insofar as if anyone else wants to help, you have legitimacy or consistency in your logic. If anyone else wants to help you have legitimacy or consistency in your logic, you surrender to their advice. Strauss gives the example of TE in the fourth slot for INFPs and ISFPs, in that they will take all the help they can get in following protocol and being more efficient. TE. In your case, it would be more about legitimacy and consistency. Your FI is your scorecard for others. You would judge them by how authentic they are, and value authenticity in others. Furthermore, you would see your FE as authentic, and FI value. This may be what Strauss means by reframe. You can see here that the fifth slot, scorecard for others, reaction to critique, is reframe. This may be what Strauss means by reframe, in that if someone criticizes you for being inauthentic, you would reframe it to FE terms and talk about behavior, respectfulness, and what human motivations everyone has in common. Wanting to be loved, wanting to be respected. This would reframe the question from FI authenticity to FE behavior. Since for FE, actions speak louder than words, and how you actually act is more important than your authentic intention. Even the notion of the authenticity of intentions is called into question. with notions like, the road to hell is paved in good intentions. Simply put, for FE, intentions aren't enough, and TI fairness adds legitimacy to FE's claim of behavior being more important than intention. Questions of authenticity are reframed as questions of behavior and respectfulness. All right, and so now we're going to the 6th, the countervalued slot. Your NE is countervalued. While NI is a tool function that can be useful in determining most likely scenarios and outcomes of social situations, NE is rejected as destabilizing and distracting. Strauss describes NI with FE as, quote, an understanding of how social narratives evolve over time, and a propensity to conclude that actions can be explained through calculations of personal interests, hierarchy, and other motivational calculi, end quote. NI can be very useful for FE, while the countervalued NE will be resented when it's criticized. NE is used for, quote, ideational destabilization, end quote. That's a quote from Strauss. Which is to break down narratives about particular sequences of events relating to each other by offering alternative ideas, no matter how far-fetched. NE does not consider likelihood, and instead creatively ideates in a way that destabilizes existing guesses and assumptions. Your SI is polar, the point of least resistance, and is a blind spot. So you would not even be aware of SI, and criticism of your SI would lead to confusion. SI is a way of knowing alternative to NI, where you know based on past experience. If someone criticized you for not knowing something based on your past experience, it would simply be confusing, because why would you be expected to know that? You know based on, quote, shape constancy, end quote, Strauss's term for how NI works, which follows sequences of events in a turn-based, discrete way. This happened, then that happened, and that's how I know this. SI knowing is not turn-based or discrete, and is instead fluid, and doesn't have shape constancy, so these aspects of SI combined would simply make it confusing to you, and criticisms of your SI equally confusing. Your TE is insecure. Strauss lists the reaction to criticism here as attack and internalize. I'm not entirely sure what that means, other than that you might attack criticisms of your TE, which, according to Strauss, is about being effective. So maybe if someone told you that you aren't being very efficient or effective, you might attack that criticism. But what does it mean to internalize? Curious keynotes that Strauss has given here, and I'm a bit perplexed. In any case, for Strauss, TE is utilitarian. So perhaps if someone criticized the utility of what you were doing, that would lead to attack. I'm wondering if your YouTube comment widget was a TE utilitarian thing, and if someone telling you it wasn't very useful would be triggering and touchy, in a way that you would attack and internalize that critique. So that end there is where I referenced Thomas's particular widget, and I was asking is it about the utility of what he's doing? I mean, how does he respond when the utility is attacked? And I don't really know, because I don't fully get the keynotes that Eric Strauss put for the 8th function slot. Again, that's the insecure slot, and the reaction to critique is attack and internalize. So, I mean, I guess attacking that critique would just be saying, well, that's not true, and offering reasons why it's not true, and so on. But then internalizing, I usually think about projective identification or something. Like someone tells you you're this and you start to think you are. So someone tells you, the words that you kind of hurt someone and that they internalize those words and strongly identify with those words and kind of hold on to it. So if that's what he means by internalize, then attack and internalize are almost opposite. Or maybe I guess it kind of makes sense because you're touchy about it, so you attack it, but you also internalize it and you also feel bad about it, maybe? I'm not quite sure. But in any case, I really, really like Eric Strauss's work. Again, here's this table. This is from Exciting Tables and Charts About Human Personality. The link is in the comments. I also linked to his YouTube channel because it's just fantastic. And in fact, he's kind of my inspiration for doing live streaming. I never really thought I would do it because I've put some videos online, but I always prepare for the videos and practice and rehearse. And live streaming is so off the cuff and spontaneous and kind of out of character for me. But I was empowered to do it by watching Eric Strauss's stream because he's just so comfortable in his own skin, and he's so just being himself and just unpretentious and really insightful, and people seem to enjoy it. So I thought, wow, if he's able to do this and just be so off the cuff, granted he's an ENTP, so maybe that's a little bit easier for him. I'm an INTJ, so it might be a little more of a stretch here, but in any case, I've started to do these live streams, kind of inspired by him, and I really love his book. His book is just incredible. I mean, it's a collection of just all sorts of different things, but his definitions are so good. So I highly recommend everyone to check out that book. And then for the ENFJs out there, I hope that this was at least interesting, and feel free to put in the comments if it rings true or not. I kind of put this forth in the Objective Personality group just as a test. I was asking Thomas, like, does this ring true for you? Does this seem correct? And so I would say the same to any ENFJ listening. And of course, if you're not an ENFJ, you can follow that formula from the book, and you can basically, let's see, critique. It's table 33 in the book, function slot being critiqued, response table, and how you respond to critique based on function slot being critiqued. It is on page 61 of the document. So you can always come up with this for yourself. Eric gives instructions for the stack, the full stack, how to figure out what cognitive functions you have in what slot. It's the same as John Beebe's stack. So if you're familiar with John Beebe's work on shadow functions, it's the same exact stack as that. So try it out, see if it rings true. See how you do react to critique and what these values are for you. Do you just disregard any critique of your dominant function? But do you surrender to any critique of your inferior function, your fourth function? Or do you attack any critique of your eighth function? Or, things like that. Are you confused by critiques of your polar function, your point of least resistance? Because I'm interested to know that. It seems to ring true for me, but I am interested in what others have to say about this. And other than that, yeah, check out Eric's YouTube, check out his book, and then if you're interested in Objective Personality, join the unofficial Objective Personality Facebook group. I'm pretty active on there, and the other theorist I mentioned, Thomas Alot, is active on there. And I'm hoping in the next live stream to talk about Objective Personality's concept of animals, which I touched on today because Thomas Alot contributed his own original research in that area. But basically, animals as tandem function usage and as a way forward to subtypes of the primary 16 Myers-Briggs types. I'm going to be talking about that hopefully next time. All right, thank you everyone for watching, and this has been Talking Type with your host, Jonah Dempsey. Take care.